The NHL and hockey is evolving, so having young, up-and-coming talent is very important for any team building for the future. And with the way that the game has changed, becoming faster and more skill-based, it feels more important now than ever to get yourself a high-quality talent through the draft or through trades. Well, today what we're going to be talking about is the top 10 under 25 NHL players that I feel would be best to start a team with today. Now, this isn't going to include players like Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, guys who are already above the age of 25, and we basically can tell at this point that they're not going to be built around for a talent. They already have a team that's solidified and is playing in the playoffs. This is more for guys who are still young enough to be in rookie contracts or just entering their first contracts, who we all feel are going to be great talents in the NHL. So if you guys have been liking the content lately and you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that now, and let's get right into this one. Starting off with my honorable mentions, I have Leo Carlsson, Wyatt Johnston, Alexis Lafreniere, Matt Boldy, Thomas Harley, Seth Jarvis, Slavkovsky, and Owen Power. There's also many more, but this is just a top 10 list and we only can have 10 players on it, so they're all going to stay in my honorable mention section. Starting with number 10, I have a kid who was just drafted last year, second overall, in Adam Fantilli. Now, when it comes to Fantilli, I think a lot of people forget that he probably would have gone first overall in almost any draft had there not been a generational guy like Conor Bard ahead of him. But despite that, I still think that Adam Fantilli is going to be an amazing talent for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, we all know Columbus doesn't have the best track record when it comes to keeping players happy or just really developing a lot of good players in their system, but I think Adam Fantilli might be the talent that's going to turn the page for this Blue Jackets organization and finally give them a player that they can build around, probably since Rick Nash. I think Adam Fantilli has the makeup to be a top line center for any team in the NHL and do it at a very high level. I see him being a comp to almost like a Bergeron, Jonathan Toews back in their primes, a guy who really just has a ton of skill, playmaking, and will be able to play good defense as he continues to mature. I have Adam Fantilli at number 10. Again, he's incredibly young on that rookie salary, and if he can stay healthy, I can see him being one of the top 10 players in the NHL in just a few years. Coming in at number 9, another guy who really had a breakout season this year, but with the Minnesota Wild, Brock Faber. When it comes to defensemen, they're really hard to come by, especially when you're looking for that top 5, top 10 kind of guy. And Brock Faber at such a young age is already proving that he's going to be able to compete with the best of them. I was talking about a lot of this with some people about the Olympic rosters and if I think he's going to make that Four Nations face-off team for USA, and I had a hard time leaving him off. That's how good he was with the Wild this year. He's dynamic, can jump up in the offense, still knows how to protect his blue line, and will be a top 5 defenseman at some point as he continues to mature. Brock Faber to me is an easy top 10 under 25 player. I have him at number 9. I want to see what he can do a little bit more before I put him higher, but at this point I think this is a good spot for Faber. At number 8, I have Matvei Michkov, who just finally joined the Philadelphia Flyers, and we're going to get to see him play his first NHL season this upcoming year. We all know that 2023 draft was filled with a ton of talent, but Michkov, I think all of us can agree, is going to be one of the top players from that year and probably went a little bit too low in that draft. Now, I know that there was some KHL contract stuff with Russia, and that's why a lot of people passed on him, but with him entering the league and getting out of that contract so soon, I feel like any team could have picked him up, and they're probably regretting it at this point. Now, we haven't seen him on an NHL roster yet, so we don't know how well his skills are going to transfer over to the league, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be a top 10 under 25 player. I still think he's going to be talented, even if he shows a little bit of regression. I have Michkov at number 8. I think he's going to be insane, and I'm very excited to see how he plays with the Flyers this year. Coming in at number 7, I have Rasmus Dahlin. Now, a lot of people give this guy some flack because he's playing with Buffalo. Buffalo continues to struggle. They haven't made the playoffs in what seems like forever, but I still think Dahlin doesn't get enough credit for just how well he's performed at such a young age. Let's not forget, this guy is still under 25 and just got his first payday, but a lot of people consider him to be a top 5 to 10 defenseman in the NHL today. That's how good he is. Now, Dahlin, to me, easily the best player on the Buffalo Sabres, and he will most likely get the captaincy coming after they just got rid of Jeff Skinner in a buyout. I love Dahlin's game. He's great on the blue line. He knows how to play offense. He has a skillful bag, being able to dangle defenders and set up his teammates in prime opportunities. I have him at number 7 on my list. I think that there's a little bit of flack going his way because he hasn't really made the playoffs with the Sabres yet, but I do think it's going to come around, and I think Dahlin's going to be the perfect building block for them over the next decade. Coming in at number 6, another young stud defenseman, Moritz Seider. The Detroit Red Wings are really building a strong culture over for their organization, and I think once they pay Moritz Seider, that's really going to be the first step to them entering this new era. Now, they just barely missed the playoffs this year, almost making that final wild card spot before the Washington Capitals took it from them in their final game. But for Detroit, they shouldn't really worry. They have a ton of young guys that they can build around. I think I mentioned earlier, if I hadn't, I need to throw him in there too. Lucas Raymond's a young guy on their team. Dylan Larkin, Alex DeBrincat, they're both entering their primes. And Moritz Seider, he's going to be the head of their blue line for over the next decade and a half if they can keep him on their roster. I think Seider, his bag of tricks is insane. He knows how to defend. He's physical. He has an offensive side to him. And I think as a young defender, he's easily a top 10 that really any team would want to build around at this point in the league. Coming in at number 5, a bit of a down year for this guy, but I think this is more about the team, the organization, and all of the struggles that they went through, more than it's about his game. Tim Stützle breaking out in one of his first seasons, having over 90 points, and then this year still putting up some solid numbers despite his goal regression. Now, like I said, the Ottawa Senators had a ton of problems this year, but I don't think you should judge Tim Stützle on this season. I think we should try and see how he looks next year or maybe the next 2 years to really make a solid decision on him. I think the potential is there with this guy. He does get a little bit of flack for maybe flopping sometimes, but when we're talking about pure skill and a guy that any team would want to take at this point, considering his age and just how mature he looks on the ice, I think Tim Stützle is easily a top 5 candidate, especially for a list like this. Coming in at number 4, easily my favorite defenseman in the NHL, Miro Heiskanen. And again, just like Dahlin, it feels like he's been around for a while, even though he's still at a very young age, and that's just more credit to him because of the influence he's already had in the NHL just over his short career. Miro Heiskanen, to me, his offensive game is special. He is easily the second best skater in the NHL, just behind Cale Makar when it comes to defensemen. I think that the way he's able to skate on his edges, create plays for his teammates, and just really head that blue line for Dallas shows how special of a player that he is. I think he gets underrated again because he's not playing in the biggest market, even though Dallas has really grown a strong fan base, especially over the past couple of years. But when you look at that young core and again the developmental system that Dallas has put together, I think Miro Heiskanen is going to be a top 5 defenseman for a very long time playing over with Dallas. Coming in at number 3, I have Quinn Hughes, the first of the Hughes brothers, and there's really not much to be said about him at this point. This season was really his breakout year. He won a Norris Trophy, led all of defensemen in points, and his offensive game has just blossomed into easily the best amongst all defensemen. The only guy you can maybe argue is Cale Makar. When it comes to Quinn Hughes, I think he's easily a top 3 guy at this point when it comes to just overall defensemen in the league. He's very special at being able to dangle defensemen and other players when they get in his way, enter the zone in such a quick and efficient manner that his team's able to set up almost on every possession that they have entering the opponent's zone. What's there not to love about Quinn Hughes? He's already the captain of the Vancouver Canucks, took this team and turned them into a playoff contender in just one season as a leader. I love his game. He's only like 24 years old, and the sky is the limit for this kid at this point. Already coming off a fantastic season that a ton of defensemen have yet to accomplish through much longer tenures in the NHL. Coming in at number 2, I have Conor Bard. While some people might have him at number 1, I think there's one guy who I still would rather have over him that's under 25. But regardless, we'll talk about that in a minute. Conor Bard, to me, I'm pretty sure all of you guys have heard this at this point. He's a special talent. The shot's incredible. The playmaking, the ability to create space. I mean, the guy hit a Michigan in one of his first couple of months in the NHL. He's insane, and there's no denying the talent. Now, the only thing with him is he is a little bit smaller, and I'm not sure how injuries are going to play with him, but you can really say that about anybody on this list. I think he's already showing maturity. He's already showing that he's going to live up to the hype that we've all created for him. And at this point, he's easily a top 3 player to build around. I mean, I can't put him a little bit higher because we've only seen one season, but I think number 2 is a very fair spot for him at this point, and I'm excited to see where he goes with the Blackhawks next season. And coming in at number 1, I have Jack Hughes, the other Hughes brother who has really taken the league by storm, already having a season with 99 points. The season before this one where he kind of sustained a lot of injuries and was a Hart favorite over the first 2 months of the year. Jack Hughes only flagged his injury stuff. We talked about this with all of these guys. They're a little bit smaller, they're young, so they have to kind of build up that muscle and get themselves to be able to sustain a long, healthy career. But outside of injuries, I think no one can argue the talent is there with Hughes. The way that he's able to make everyone else look like they're going half the speed that he is something that you rarely see in other players. It's very much so like a Connor McDavid kind of feeling where you're watching this guy just tear through the game with so much ease that it almost looks effortless. I think for me at this point, Jack Hughes, he's easily my top player to build around. He's only 23 years old, and again, just like his brother, the sky is the limit, and I feel like he's easily going to be winning a Stanley Cup over the next 5 years, especially with the roster that has been put around him. Not to mention the very friendly contract that he signed with the Devils that should allow the team to build around him with very complementary pieces over the next 8 years or so. But these are my top 10 under 25 NHL players to start a team with list. Let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below, who I left off this list, or if you think an honorable mention deserves to be in the top 10 over one of these guys. As always, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.